If, like me, you're hoping that Ships at Sea is going to be more realistic than the previous two titles, and you want an honest review that will highlight all of the best and worst features of the game as it is right now, then you're in the right place. This is the third iteration of the series, and in my humble opinion, in terms of potential, it's the best yet, and by quite a long way, at least in most areas. Be under no illusion, this is very early access, maybe less than 50% complete early access, and as such, you will need to be very patient and understanding whilst this title continues to be developed, and you can expect many game-breaking bugs, CTDs, and numerous patches which will break previously working features. We could be looking at maybe a year or even two before the game feels completely polished. That being said, for those of us who wanted a more realistic fishing experience, there is a lot of good and positive stuff here to discuss. The most important being that this is no longer just a fishing game. Instead, this is now a game which focuses on seafaring ships, and as such, there's a whole new arena of opportunities which have emerged. Medical emergencies, electrical and mechanical failures, deliveries, fish farms which you can buy and own, fires, hand fishing, whale spotting, although I think quite a bit more work needs to be done with fish animation overall, and much more is planned and potentially going to be available. They've decided to use the NVIDIA Waveworks system, which has been incorporated, and it's designed to provide cinematic quality ocean simulation, and it does a decent job of achieving that. We certainly do have waves, currents, and some pretty epic storms to contend with. A lot more work is required in order to make this feel authentic everywhere on the map. What I'm talking about here are the protected harbours, for example, but the fact that the waves and the weather exist is great news, and it's a very enjoyable experience. Now, the boat physics themselves are still largely unrealistic. When you throw in the perks and the equipment upgrades, it all still feels rather arcade-like, but at least boats can capsize now, and even in the most modest of weather swells if you're not careful, but they don't sink at the moment. Now, there are some worrying tremors that capsizing might be removed in the future, but I hope that they decide to keep that in and maybe add more to the sinking animation or whatever. That being said, if the boat takes damage and the damage meter reaches 0, then it destroys your boat completely. It's gone. So insurance is finally a valid investment. Of course, we also have the ability to walk around on shore and all the boats, or eventually we will have this feature, but in early access some of the ships have got restrictions that mean you cannot walk around them freely. But right now, we cannot officially climb onto our boats in a realistic manner from the dock. I say officially because it is actually possible to do it, and I hope that they change this to become the default. But I have to explain that this might never happen because swimming is not really on the cards. Now, this might possibly be a limitation of NVIDIA's Waveworks because it doesn't seem to accommodate underwater simulation very well, and as such, they have no way of transitioning your character into the water should you fall off or should your boat sink. That, for me, is what's on top of my wish list at the moment. Of course, one of the benefits of being on board during early access is that you can voice your ideas to the devs and have your wishes realised potentially. If the simulation community are more vocal this time, we might have an amazing game on our hands in about 1 or 2 years' time. Now, some of you will have been impressed by seeing the rowboat in the trailer. Sadly, at the moment, that's little more than a gimmick. Basically, the controls are terrible. They're nothing close to that of the rowboats that you have in Sea of Thieves, for example, where the oars are controlled by using the left and the right triggers. That allows precision and overall a realistic feel and control, but that doesn't really exist in the game at all at the moment. And although the rowboats can get through some tight nooks and crannies, which the map would have you believe are completely inaccessible, they can't actually dock at all locations. I found that out the hard way after having rowed for 3 kilometres because my delivery boat had previously sunk, and they refused to let me dock my rowboat there and drop off the package. It was extremely annoying, So I hope they look at that and improve the rowboat, the point of having the rowboat at all. So just to sum everything up, overall Ships at Sea is a huge leap forward in terms of realism, albeit with a few frightened little shuffles backwards in terms of functionality. The negatives right now include the limited game save functionality, which is being worked on and improved almost on a daily basis. There are no key binding options whatsoever. Controller support is totally absent, although the Xbox 360 controller does work with the game. It's constantly changing and it's not really in the best state it's ever been. And there are more bugs overall in this game than there are fish in the sea. But that's just part of early access. The positives, I think, outweigh the negatives, and that's the new first-person functionality that allow you to get off the boats and walk around on shore, the new gameplay variety options, and the future development possibilities that this game has thrown open by taking this sort of ground level direction, if you will. And they've made huge strides in terms of a more realistic experience. There are real consequences to your decisions, and there's an overall sense of risk and reward now that never existed in the previous two games. So the foundations are really very, very good indeed. The only question now is, what should they build on top of that?